Hello everyone and welcome to another game I played on PTCGO. For this match I'm going to be playing a Yveltal deck, but this time instead of Garbodor I'm trying out Raichu here. As you can see I'm actually starting off with Pikachu and nothing really else to play down in my hand, but fortunately I do have that N. And my opponent reveals an Yveltal. So this may be a mirror match exactly, or it'll at the very least be an Yveltal variant. So I'm going to play that N. I did choose to go first. I get an Yveltal of my own, but the non-EX varieties. So here I'm actually going to play down a Veerbank CD Gym, play Hypnotoxic Laser to poison my opponent, put him to sleep. If he stays asleep, maybe this match can end quickly. So I'm going to attach a Darkness Energy onto my benched Yveltal and just end my turn. So now my opponent did end up waking up in between turns. So I think he was actually favored to win this match. And here we see him play a Sableye, and a Hypnotoxic Laser. So Sableye is actually seeing less and less play, ironically, in these Yveltal decks. People are playing fewer or some not at all, which I don't know. I think it's a huge mistake. I personally like playing Sableye just because it allows your deck to be consistent and more versatile. You can play one of cards and get them back, but that's just my personal preference. So my opponent just attached and passed his turn. I'm going to N. I did get a Raichu off of that, and I'm getting a DCE. I'm going to just attack with Raichu for 40 since Yveltal will do less damage. I could have done much more, but I don't really have anything on my bench right now. So damage is capped at 20, times 2 for weakness. Now my opponent is going to N. So this Yveltal has taken quite a bit of damage so far. But off that N, my opponent manages to get a Float Stone, so he's going to retreat into Sableye and maybe just junk hunt for something that he's discarded, I think. But we also see a Darkrai hit the bench, and a Dark Claw goes on Sableye, and we actually see a Confuse Ray instead of a Junk Hunt. And a heads off that Confuse Ray means I'm confused. Fortunately, Raichu does have free retreat, so that won't be too problematic, but right now my hand isn't anything I want to discard, so I'm just going to not play that Juniper. I will play a Startling Megaphone, discarding a Float Stone and a Dark Claw on my opponent's side, and then play another Hypnotoxic Laser here. Don't get the heads, but I am going to be able to Oblivion Wing for 30, and if my opponent doesn't retreat Sableye, it will get knocked out, going back into my next turn. But my opponent thus far doesn't have anything powered up on the bench. He's going to attach 1 energy to Darkrai, play a Hypnotoxic Laser of his own, and I this time do not fall asleep, so that's fortunate. And then we see a Juniper get played. He did play a Bianca earlier, I believe, which again is not something I see all that often. And my opponent plays down a second Darkrai and a Buffalon. And we see a Junk Hunt here for a Hypnotoxic Laser and a Dark Claw. And then Sableye succumbs to poison in between turns. I take my first prize, and my opponent is going to promote that Buffalon. So I don't really have an immediate response to Buffalon. I don't think I can knock it out. I don't want to Juniper my hand away, so I'm just going to Chorus for 4, and unfortunately these 4 cards aren't all that great. So I can just Oblivion Wing for 10, and I think that's about it. Unfortunately, I don't want to promote Raichu because that's really my only decent attacker at this point. Now my opponent is going to put down a Trubbish, so he is playing a Garbodor line in there, and he's going to attach a Dark Claw onto Darkrai and attach another energy. So maybe he'll be able to attack with this on this turn if he can attach one more. And we see another Hypnotoxic Laser. So I'm already poisoned. Maybe he's just trying to get me to go to sleep. He unfortunately gets a heads. And then we see an N. He gets another Yveltal off of that. and he's just going to pass the turn, and I unfortunately stay asleep. So this has been something recurring in this match, that he does get the sleep flips. So I will play a Starling Megaphone, getting rid of that Dark Claw from Darkrai. Here I can chorus for 8, so quite helpful. I can play down Darkrai and actually get quite a few things going this turn. So I'm going to Professor's Letter, get 2 Darkness Energy into my hand. Then here I can Dowsing Machine them away and get myself a Hypnotoxic Laser to poison the active Bouffalant, just so I can actually do some damage this turn. And I do get a Tails off of that sleep flip, but that's not really what I was going for now. I can Dark Patch here onto Darkrai, and I'm actually going to Dark Patch twice. That's going to give me 2 energy, and I can play that DCE down as well as the Silver Bangle on Pikachu, just in case I need to attack with a Raichu, and just end my turn. So going to my opponent's turn, we flip and I actually wake up, although at this point I'm pretty heavily damaged, so I'm pretty sure it's not going to matter. But my opponent chooses to use an escape rope here. So with this, I'm going to send up Raichu just because it's heavily damaged, and I figured my opponent is going to take 2 prizes anyway. So he's going to send up Darkrai. This is going to allow him to Night Spirit the active Raichu and the benched Yveltal. I prefer doing it this way instead of letting him damage my Darkrai or my Pikachu and knocking it out, or Sableye. He can take the 2 prizes and I can keep decent attackers on the field. So I get a Dark Claw, I will play that along with a Juniper. I top deck an Yveltal off of that, or I get one off of that, and I'm going to actually Night Spear with a Dark Claw, doing 110 damage, and then I deal 30 more to the damaged Yveltal EX on the bench, and 1 more Night Spear. We'll bring it a little bit closer to knockout. I think it has 40 left. He's going to Dark Patch onto it, ironically enough, and attach an energy. So he's going to attack with this heavily damaged Yveltal, it looks like, or he's planning on doing something. Now he's going to Ultra Ball, getting rid of an escape rope, to bring out a Garbodor, or Garbodor. It's going to evolve. I'm not really sure why he wants to turn off abilities. It's not going to do much for him here, but he will Juniper his hand away. Maybe he's just trying to play it down. And then we see a Hypnotoxic Laser, and fortunately this time for me the flip ends up with a Tails, so I'm not going to be asleep. Then he does retreat into Yveltal, and he's going to be able to Evil Ball me. But first he attaches a Floatstone onto Garbodor and deals 120 damage. I take 30 in between turns. So here I have a decision to make. I'm going to attach a Darkness Energy onto Yveltal. I'm going to Pal Pad, bringing back a Juniper and a Chorus, because I don't really want the ends in my hand right now. And then I'm going to play an N, bringing my opponent down to 4 cards and giving myself 5. I do get a Raichu, so I can play that. Here I can retreat into Raichu and take the knockout with that, or keep Darkrai in the active spot and Night Spear, just because he'll be able to Night Spear Darkrai for the knockout next turn. So again, realizing that I'm going to lose it anyway, I figure I'll attack with it and let it be. So here I'm going to deal damage to the Darkrai that has no damage on it to it. I will take 2 prizes, and I have the dreaded 4 Juniper hand. Quad Juniper. That's horrible. And I will succumb to poison between turns. My opponent pushes up Garbodor into the active spot, and I think I'm going to send up here a Sableye, and as a sacrifice in case he wants to attack with it. He can attack with Darkrai and take a prize here, leaving him 1 more to go and leaving myself 3, so not a super ideal situation. He's going to attach a Floatstone onto Yveltal, bench another Darkrai and promote his Darkrai with 3 energy on it, but it also has 110 damage. So he'll be able to Night Spear. I'm just sort of trying to see what he'll attack. So my opponent fortunately decides to end me, so I don't have to Juniper all those Junipers. And I get 2 Junipers and a Super Rod. So we see the Night Spear, and the damage goes on to Raichu. So I will push Raichu up into the active, just because it has a free retreat. But I don't know if I'll attack with it. So I can actually hear Super Rod bringing back a Darkness Energy, a Darkrai, and here another Dark Energy. So I figure those cards might be useful here. I'm just going to Juniper my hand away. I could have used Lysander, but I couldn't really take the knockout on an EX, so I'm just going to retreat and Evil Ball here for the knockout, leaving myself with 1 prize and tying the game. So I do manage to get a DCE, so that can be critical here, depending what my opponent does. He promotes Garbodor, he's going to Dark Patch onto something. He can power up Yveltal or Darkrai on the bench. He goes for Yveltal, but that's still only 1 energy. He needs at least 1 more to attack. We see a random receiver, and he reveals a Chorus. This is going to get him only 5 cards, but the card he does get is a Dark Energy. So he can Evil Ball me here, but it won't be enough for the knockout. So he may decide against it. But let's see what he pushes up. He can't keep Garbodor there because I can essentially knock him out quite easily because he didn't end me. And we see my opponent wait. It's obviously him deciding whether or not it makes sense to send something else up that I could potentially knock out, because I will probably be able to knock out Garbodor, and I can probably knock out his benched Bouffalant. Does he risk the Darkrai or the Yveltal that have no damage? He actually decides to send up the Darkrai with some damage, so the one I had damage for 30 earlier. Here I actually get 3 Pokemon I can bench, so maybe I can use Circle Circuit. And I also get a DCE, so I can attach that onto Yveltal. And I have a Dark Patch in hand, so I can use that to power up my benched Yveltal. And here I have a choice to make. So either way, I can't knock my opponent out with the current hand, but I can try to maybe go for a Raichu Circle Circuit and see if I can pull that off with a Hypnotoxic Laser and a Muscle Band, which I have, or I actually have a Silver Bangle, sorry. So I do get a laser, but for whatever reason, I guess I'm not seeing or making the obvious play, and I'm going to go for the Evil Ball. So I could have just won by using a Circle Circuit. I would have done enough damage, and my opponent would have succumbed to poison. And I guess it's not a necessarily fatal play, because my opponent still has a Darkrai stuck in the active. Garbodor's Garbotoxin is still in effect, so he cannot retreat. But then my opponent plays a Tool Scrapper, allowing abilities to go back in effect, and Chorus, so if he gets the right combination of energies and a Hypnotoxic Laser, he can knock me out. So he's going to Dark Patch 1 onto his Yveltal on the bench. He still needs a Hypnotoxic Laser in order to win, so I'm hoping he won't get that, but we see a Dowsing Machine. So with this, he has enough energy, and I unfortunately have enough energy on the active. I should have Evil Balled, should have Y-Cyclone instead of Evil Balled, and that could have ensured I would have survived that gross misplay, but hey, sometimes really stupid moves happen. And my opponent takes the win that way, and this near mirror match ends. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the match despite the misplay.